The last time we got a balance patch, it was like this. 5 cards? Really? Abracam, what were you doing for the past year? But this time, we got 34 different card changes. What? You got Explorer buffs, you got Blue Jump buffs, Groundshaker is finally more balanced, and wait. This card was perfectly fine. Abracam, why? Frogify was a good card, it's fine. What the fuck? Hello everybody, it's me, Werfs, back at it with another video, this time talking about the balance patch that was released earlier yesterday. How will I talk about these cards? I'll start talking about the changes, any possible interaction changes, and then I'll give the card a rating out of 5 stars based on its power level and how much play it will see once the meta settles down a bit, as well as compare it to previous power levels, also out of 5 stars. There are a lot of cards this time, so I'll try to keep things brief, and not talk too much about how Frogify was gutted mercilessly and left on the curb to die. Anyways, let's get started. Let's start with Doomgate, with its cost reduced to 1 from 3. The Doomgate buffs give Sacrifice archetype decks a bit of a buff, especially with other Sacrifice changes. Now, I don't believe Doomgate will see a lot of play, as the fundamentals of this card is a bit flawed. This card takes a lot of time to ramp up enough sacrifices to summon Ostrogoth, and is still very susceptible to early removal for the first few turns it's played. While Sacrifice archetypes generally want to destroy as many friendly creatures as possible, Doomgate's stat distribution has not changed, allowing Wind Soldier and Flame Burst to remove it very easily. However, the 2 Faeria reduction will give the Sacrifice deck some breathing room, as your opponent is forced to trade unfavorably with it. So how would I rate this card? I would say this card makes it so that any removal card is used at a Faeria loss, but the fundamental aspect of this card will not allow it to see any play. However, I can see mono yellow Sacrifice possibly making this card work in a gimmick deck. 2 out of 5 stars. Malevolent Spirit has been a problem card for yellow forever, seeing multiple nerfs, buffs, reworks. However, it feels like Abracam has settled for 4 Faeria, 2 Desert, 3/3 that drains 2 life from your opponent. Will this make the card playable? All current archetypes of yellow don't really have slots for Malevolent Spirit. Flyers are focused on, well, obviously flying creatures and charge abilities, while Tempo is focused on Faeria efficient bodies, of which Malevolent Spirit is neither. For the 4-drop in Yellow Rush, Zealous Crusader fits that slot much nicer. I believe this is a good step towards Malevolent Spirit being able to see some play, but I don't believe it will work out. I'd say this card is still pretty weak, doesn't fit any previously existing archetypes. 4 Faeria 3/3 is not good. 2 stars. Oath to Oblivion has been an interesting card, to say the least. For the low cost of 2 Faeria and a creature that you will want to sacrifice, you get a 6/3 with charge 3. That did not see play because Yellow Rush preferred having more bodies in the form of Demon Wrangler, and sacrifice decks generally had better sacrifice cards than using Oath. However, one thing that I find interesting is because Oath is now a 0-cost card and requires 5 deserts, it could potentially combo very well with Shaitan, Monstrosity, and Desert Twister for OTK potential. Food for thought. 3 Oath to Oblivions in hand with a Monstrosity on the board means that the Monstrosity gains 12 attack plus whatever was previously sacrificed, and you get a 6/3 charge 3 on the board. Using a Desert Twister, you can easily move the Monstrosity to an aggressive spot, and utilizing its charge 2 ability can reach face very easily. I'd say this card could single-handedly make Monstrosity powerful, and could potentially open up a new yellow OTK archetype. I'll give this card a rating of 4 stars. If yellow OTK can withstand the meta, I can see this card being very, very powerful when used in tandem with Desert Twisters and Flash Winds. Architect has been an interesting card, being able to synergize with Faeria Tree, Crystal Flower, Derelict Tower, just to name a few, to squeeze out some extra value and get a small 2/2 body in the process. This card received a very small but also huge change. The land requirement was shifted from 2 mountains to 1 wildland and 1 mountain, allowing this card to be much more splashable in structure decks. One thing to note is that Architect can give Doomgate 2 procs a lot easier now, since the land requirement was lowered. Final verdict, simple land change will allow this card to see much more play in multicolor decks. But, are structure decks ever going to see play? Probably not. And as such, will Architect ever see play? Also, probably not. I'll give this card a very generous 3 stars. I'd say it's a very high 2, very low 3, but with the Devouring Plant changes and Imperial Dream changes, this could be a very, very low 3, just barely crosses into 3 stars. Blazing Salamander has also changed a bit to be a less bad version of Emerald Salamander, now dealing damage to all enemy units instead of just creatures, meaning you can hit face and you can hit structures. So that's a really, really strong change for Blazing Salamander. Just being able to hit 2 face, that's really strong. Maybe Blazing Salamander in Red Rush confirmed? I like to see the change this card received, as it also makes sure Architect's new splash ability won't get out of hand too fast. Final verdict, 3 out of 5 stars. This card still won't see play because a 5 Faeria 2/5 is just bad, and for 1 more Faeria, you can cast Firestorm, which is a way better card than Salamander. Devouring Plant also got a slight buff. It got its mountain requirements changed. 1 mountain requirement makes this card actually insanely good against Yellow Rush. I'm not even joking. Devouring Plant can possibly be a 2 or even 3 of in a red structure deck. Combo with Architect, this new 1-land flower makes it very hard for Yellow Rush to get through. Not much to say for this card other than the 1-land change will make it a menace for Yellow Rush. I'd say it's a pretty high 3 stars, not yet 4, 3 stars. Shadeen Pest essentially got its old stat line of 6/4 back. Only problem is, the land requirements going from 1 mountain to 3 mountains hurts this card quite a bit. Shadeen Pest was known for being able to directly contest Groundshaker because it was 1 mountain and Groundshaker was 2. Now that Shadeen Pest is 3 mountains, I think it was... Oh wait, look what happened here. With the Groundshaker nerf, Shadeen Pest is still a very strong contender against it and can contest a Groundshaker for just 4 Faeria. However, the stat line change from 4/3 gain +2/0 to a 4/2 that gains +2/2 makes it that much more necessary to have it proc when you summon it. Otherwise, you just played a really bad air elemental. Final verdict, I'd say along with the Groundshaker nerf and a very sizable body for 4 Faeria, I'm gonna have to give this card a solid 4 stars. It's still weak to Bomb Slinger, but then again, a lot of cards are. Firebringer had its stats change from a 1/1 to a 2/0, meaning now it stacks on top of itself, which is pretty nice. Along with Shadeen Pest buffs that is also in this balance patch, mid-range Red Angry could potentially see a comeback. The 1 lost health from Firebringer could be a problem, as missing 1 health can open you up to some pretty nasty removal options, and Voice of Truth now just straight up kills Firebringer since it has a vanilla stat of 2/0. So Red Angry will suck against green, but then again Red is always bad against green. Along with the Shadeen Pest change, I can see Red Angry fighting its way back into the meta as potentially a tier 2 deck. I'd say this card is a very solid 4 stars. This card is very strong because its support cards also got a buff. Finally, the last buff for Red, which also happens to be one of the most broken, busted, OP things I've ever seen. Herald of War got a very vanilla +1 cost for +1/1 stats, which is exactly why this card is now broken. This card essentially guarantees at least 1 proc, possibly 2 for your next combat creature. Suddenly, your Underground Brigand doesn't die to Flameburst anymore, and instead of now a 4/5 that's contesting your opponent's units a lot easier. You can then save Gift of Steel for cards that don't receive Herald of War buffs, making it so that your combat creatures will always have a +1/1 on top of their stats. This card's power has been boosted immensely just by having vanilla +1/1 added on top of it. Final verdict, 5 out of 5, it's a work of art, it's the best. Terran buff! Wait, Terran buff. Let's see. It reduced its land cost from 5 to 4. So it's still 15 Faeria cost. And it still needs to combo with Feed, which is still 5 Forest. So Terram is still essentially a 5 land card. Okay, 1 star still. Alright, let's move on to the next one. Tiki Chieftain received a small cost reduction from 3 to 2. It's similar to Architect now being a 2/2 for 2 that has a targeted gift effect to help yourself out. Will Tiki Chieftain see more play? Personally, I feel like green as a color already packs enough taunts in their decks, but that doesn't mean Tiki Chieftain wouldn't be a good card to force awkward situations for your opponent, especially if you have a taunted Ancient Boar or a Runin. I'll give this card a 2 to 3 star rating. It's not very strong, but the cost reduction makes this card maybe playable in certain green taunt decks. I doubt this card will single-handedly create a new archetype, but it's definitely a good step forward. Tiki Healer's change is just wow. It was already played as a 1-of in Beastmaster Green, and the buff now only makes it stronger. A 4 Faeria 2/6 that heals you for 5 is much stronger than a 5 Faeria 2/6 that heals you for 6. With this change, Tiki Healer is essentially a 2 Faeria 2/6 with a guidance tacked on top of it. and because it's almost exclusively played in Beastmaster Green, this card can easily be a 3-7 with Heal 5. Faeria also allows this card to come out easier and faster against Yellow Rush, allowing the low attack, high health body to trade favorably, making it all that much stronger. Solid 5 stars. Weeping Idol has always been one of those cards, those being it's good in meme combo decks, but sucks literally everywhere else. And I agree! The cost of Weeping Idol being reduced to 0 makes it a very easy card to throw around when you want to start hurting yourself. The 2 forest requirement isn't too big of a change, considering previous meme decks needed to make 2 forests anyways. However, this does prevent the green-yellow self-harm train from rolling out a little bit earlier, which to me just looks like Abracam's attempt at stopping the green-yellow self-hurt meme deck. I'd say this card is still at a power rating of 1 star, despite being a 0-cost card. It's still not a good card, there's not a lot of self-hurt synergies in green, and overall, no matter what way you cut it, it's just not going to work in a lot of decks. Gabriel Noble got a small life increase from 4 to 5, pushing it out of Bomb Slinger and Firebomb ranges. Not that anyone plays Firebomb. Only issue is, at 6 cost and 3 lake requirements, a 4-5 that spawns a tiny 1-1 is still not a good card. It's understated, the ability sucks, it's still not going to see play. However, because this card is now out of Bomb Slinger and Firebomb range, I can see this card being somewhat playable. Not really, but I'll give it 2 stars. Triton Trainer has received perhaps what is one of the most archetype defining buffs. Now, what does this extra 1 health mean instead of the 2 attack? This means Triton Warrior can now trade into a Grimgar without fear of Cypher's Wrath afterwards, being vulnerable to only Flame Burst. Also, Triton Warrior's 5-5 stats thanks to Triton Trainer will keep it healthy away from Bomb Slinger. The 5-5 jump is no joke. Not only that, Triton Trainer also combos well with some previously existing cards, Battletoads, Shifting Octopus, Water Elemental. Overall, a very solid card that will be giving you a lot of value once it comes down. I can see this card bringing Blue Jump back into the meta, or help Blue-Green jump a bit more. Definite 5 stars. The Explorers! Removing the gift effect and now having it as a persistent effect makes these tough cards playable much earlier. Explorers in the past generally have had really strong stats once all the land requirements were met, but the only thing that held them back from being played was the gift effect. Because Explorer's stat lines are now persistent effects, they become much more playable early game and allow you to ramp up their damage, ramp up their health as the game goes on. Very good changes, to be honest. They still won't see a lot of play considering color cards are made to be stronger than neutrals, but I feel like this is a very, very good change. I rate the Explorer package 3 stars. Maybe they could hit 4 stars if the stars align and Explorers become played, but for now, I think we'll have to settle with a 3 out of 5. Longhorn Yak saw an increase in life, bumping it up from 2 to 3. I mean, it's Longhorn Yak. I guess it might see some sort of play in the near future as Fall of Everlife looms over us, but this feels like a filler change, to be honest. In the current metagame, I see no use for Longhorn Yak. Attacking just doesn't really matter in the current meta, and having no control of what creature gains the attack just makes this card terrible. You either high roll and hit Rakon Reveler and get free Faeria, or you end up hitting Underground Brigand, which has no need for higher attack because, you know, you'll be casting Gift of Steel on it at least 90% of the time. This card is going to remain in 1 star unless someone can prove it's not a trash tier card. And even then, I'm pretty sure I'm still going to rate it 1 star. It's just a bad card. Monkey Genius. Also still a bad card regardless of land requirements. For Faeria, that's dependent on your opponent collecting multiple times next turn. This card is somewhat of a comeback card since the further ahead your opponent is in terms of well control, the more stats this card will get. However, it does nothing about your opponent being ahead in the first place, which is why this card will see no play, just like my happiness. 1 star. Queen's Favorite, 4 Faeria 2-3 with protection. A creature with protection gains more from higher attack stats than defense stats. Still a trash card, will see no play just like Monkey Dumbass over here. 1 star. Walking Fortress. Okay, so this one is a bit of an interesting change. Raising the attack from 6 to 7 made this card a lot stronger. Vanilla stats are usually just the Faeria cost of the card multiplied by 2 and divided amongst attack and defense stats. Walking Fortress is almost there, being a 9-drop with 17 points of stats. However, long story short, not a lot of decks need the raw numbers Walking Fortress provides. Red, yellow, and blue don't rely on big creatures to end the game, and while green does, they have their own arsenal of cards that are much more powerful than Walking Fortress. However, I've actually seen Walking Fortress being played in certain red control lists as a finisher. Give the steal on Walking Fortress turns it into a 10 attack creature, effectively putting your opponent on a 2-turn clock. I'll say for now this card will get 3 stars from me. It's already somewhat seen successful play in just a few hours past the balance patch, so that's pretty neat. Dreamkeeper has always been a card that people fiddle around with and always want to be made viable. It gives your hand a permanent 1 Faeria discount, and the redraw mechanics help you find answers when you need them. And I really believe that the 2-4 taunt stat line will help it out immensely. This card is no longer answered by Flame Burst, and having the same stat line as Wood Elemental could definitely help mid-range bargain decks against Rush. I'll give this card a solid 4 stars because I really believe that a mid-range bargain deck can flourish and Dreamkeeper will push it forward. Also, the 2-4 stat line is just good. Ice Rock Behemoth. Oh my god, this card is the king of stats. And it got buffed from an 8-8 for 8 to a 7-7 for 7. Now, why is this a buff, you may ask? This number fits perfectly with Bold Bargainer and Ogre Dance. To be honest, the 7-7 body won't be much different from the 8-8, considering this card has taunt and protection and is going to get Last Nightmare or Frogify no matter what. So, you know, stat line doesn't really matter. However, it is a still very strong card, and now that it fits in an Ogre Dance range perfectly, we could see this card being slotted in possibly into Red-Blue Bargain. 4 stars. I like the changes, and the lower cost far outweighs the 1-1's worth of lost stats. Skyward Swordfish is something that a lot of people have been toying with since its release, trying to make a green-yellow flyers list work. Swordfish has always been a card that I personally deem too slow because of its high land requirements. However, Swordfish had its wild land requirements lowered down from 3 to 2, allowing it to come out a turn earlier. At 4 lands and its current stat distribution, Swordfish could potentially kick green-yellow flyers forward. I'll give Swordfish a 4 star, maybe high 3. I can see it working in green-yellow flyers, but the only question that remains is green-yellow flyers stronger than the classic mono-yellow flyers? And now we move on to the nerfs. First off, we have the Soul Eater nerf. Soul Eater's stat gain no longer works while it is in play, meaning once you dedicate a Soul Eater, the number you see on the screen is the number you get for the rest of the game. I believe this is a very severe nerf for Soul Eater, as you can no longer keep its health topped up after summoning it by sacrificing more creatures. However, I still believe Soul Eater is a strong contender. Most of the time, the game will end within 3 turns of Soul Eater being summoned, so I don't believe this nerf will kill Green-Yellow Sacrifice, but rather keep it in check. I'd give this card a solid 4 star still, but it definitely used to be a 5 star card. The nerf just makes it so that you can't squeeze out extra points of attack for surprise lethals. Groundshaker has also been a card that people have been crying for nerfs to hit, and it finally happened. Groundshaker now costs 3 mountains to cast, which means early game fairies don't have to worry about getting removed for free by Groundshaker anymore. Not only that, turn 2 plays where your opponent uses Explore along with Groundshaker and Cypher's Wrath is also gone, meaning Red has a much harder time snowballing an early lead now. Along with the Shadeen Pest and Firebringer changes, mid-range Red Angry seems to be making a comeback into the meta, so I'd say Groundshaker is still a 5 star card just like before, considering it's still a fairly big body along with a small AoE every time you summon one. Frogify. Why? No, seriously. Abercam, why? I don't get it. Frogify saw land requirement increase from 3 lakes to 4. Goodbye answer to turn 2 Queensguard. This change just destroyed Blue's ability to ward off early threats against Red Rush. I believe that it'll be fine in Blue-Green Jump. This change wouldn't affect them too much as Blue-Green Jump usually goes up to 4 lakes and 3 forests anyways. But I'd say this card's power level has gone from a solid 4 to a very shaky 3. Frogify was one of the best answers you could have for a turn 2 Queensguard. With the land requirement being upped, you'll also need a water elemental in your starting hand in order to get enough lakes to fend off early Queensguards. Now this one. This is a change that I fully support. Imperial Drain finally gets the nerf hammer, now costing 1, up from 0, and instantly refilling wells when destroyed. This is a huge nerf to rush decks that use Imperial Drain to stay ahead, as it not only takes up 1 precious Faeria, but also allows your opponents to collect the same turn the Drain was destroyed. I'm sure this will allow Drain to stop being such an oppressive tool, especially in Red Rush. This card's power level is a solid 2, down from an impressive 5. Honestly, I would give this card's ult power level a 6. Like, definitely, it was crazy. Being able to deny anywhere between 2 to 8 Faeria from your opponent for free. Now, the card is much more balanced and will have a hard time being squeezed out due to its cost. Yakapult, as some people predicted, saw a small nerf. Its cost increased from 3 to 4, meaning you'll have to dedicate a bit more resources to use Yakapult as a win condition. However, I'd say its power level still remains at a solid 5. I don't see any decks swapping out Yakapult for other cards, and the 1 Faeria increase to Yakapult shouldn't be a huge hit for most decks running Yakapult as a win condition. Definitely a solid 5. Last but not least, we have Gemshell Tortoise. We finally see a Gemshell nerf, and a big nerf it is. Its stats have gone from a sturdy 6-6 to a slightly weaker 5-6, and the cards drawn through its gift effect is reduced by 2 instead of 3. What does this mean? No more 3-cost Firestorms, no more 1-cost Archons, and overall reduces the discount by 2 Faeria. Gemshell was one of the cards hit the hardest with the latest balance patch, and I really believe that this will help keep Red-Blue Bargain in check, as it now has a smaller body and the discount on cards is much smaller. I don't think this card will go anywhere. It'll still be a pillar card for bargain decks, but it's good seeing this card getting a bit of a nerf. However, paired with the Ice Rock Behemoth, which was buffed by quite a bit, this card is still a very strong contender in the meta. However, when we bring Frogify into the equation, this does push bargain decks to become a 7-land deck, because number 1, you need 3 mountains for Firestorm and Groundshaker now. And now you need 4 lakes for Frogify. So you either cut out Frogify from your bargain list, or you up the land cost and have it be a 7-land deck. Final verdict, I'll give it a high 3 stars, low 4 stars. I said before it was still a very solid 4, almost 5-star card. But, I mean, Gemshell did get hit pretty hard, so I'll give it a high 3. So, how will the meta shift? I've already seen Red Angry making a strong comeback into the meta. Since Shadim Pest was buff and Firebringers now buff off of each other, this gives Mono Blue a hard time dealing with their creatures, even with the Trident Trainer buff. Red Rush is a bit more balanced since Imperial Drain was hit very hard, but the early answers like Groundshaker and Frogify getting nerfed means Red Rush will remain a very competitive deck, and it might even get stronger as time goes on. Because Red Rush might only get stronger as the meta settles, we'll see Red-Blue Bargain slowly dying out. Yellow Tempo and Flyers will see a resurgence in play, since the Fairies and Flyers don't get pinged off for free by Groundshakers, and Tempo generally has really good answers to Red Rush's early aggression in the form of Faeria-efficient creatures and Choking Sands. The next few weeks or even month will be a very tumultuous time for the metagame, as the release of Fall of Everlife looms over us. I hope I offer some good insight on how I view the balance patch and any possible interaction changes. And if you have any questions, disagreements, feel free to leave them in the comments. And as always, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.